Hi, I'm Mark Honeybone from Property Ventures, and welcome to our weekly podcast where we interview prominent members of the investment community along with other professionals in the New Zealand property market. This is a free service from Property Ventures so that you can keep current and learn from some of the best around New Zealand. To check us out, take a look at propertyventures.co.nz. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hi and welcome back to our latest podcast. Now this week we're in for a real treat, and I've been excited to talk to one of the probably most successful people in the world that I've actually have spoken to before. At the Property Investor Conference in Christchurch, the main speaker was a chap from Wales and one of the most successful property investors over in the UK. Kevin Green is his name. He's a self-made multi-millionaire and a TV celebrity over there. He's a big commentator of the property market and also business over there as well. He's one of UK's largest residential property landlords. He features on various programs, as I said, and he's come from a background of being homeless in 1984, worked on a dairy farm, and now has a wealth of experience in property investment world, and heads a number of successful companies and other non-property related businesses. You're in for a real treat. You'll love what you hear. Richard Branson has been his mentor, and he brings a lot of his traits to his business, how he does business now. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next half hour and again next week. So welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks, Mark.
I thought this is a couple of days before the Wales All Black test, so I thought I'd get you on before the test because you might sulk and not want to come on in a couple of days' time. So
yeah, it's a similar conversation yesterday with Justin Marshall, and he's over here stirring things up. He's a good lad, though. He's doing a charity dinner for a group of us tomorrow, so raising money for the local kiddies. So I like him a lot, but I hope that's not the outcome. I hope we cane you a lot. It's not long overdue.
you are due, so that's all good. Interesting what you said, Justin Marshall there doing a fundraising thing. I know you're very big on that, and you might touch on that later on. But so we've sort of talked a bit about what you are, or who you are in the introduction. But so tell us who Kevin Green is now, and what was your background before you started with the property?
Dairy farming background. It's been in the farming family for generations, and I was expecting, really, obviously, to continue in that vein. Bit of a glitch with that, with a clash with my father back in 1984. Whereby I went to agricultural college and learned the new ways to do farming and tried to bring those home, and Dad wasn't too pleased about all that, and I was a bit headstrong, and stupidly I took the decision to leave home because my father said to me I either did it his way or there was the highway, so I took the highway, and that led to the change of things, really, Mark.
Right, yeah, I can understand that. I'm from a farm too, but I was never brave enough to tell my dad he didn't do things right.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know whether it was a wrong thing looking back to actually go away from home, but it was a huge experience for me to be on the streets with no money and having to beg and scrimp from chips off the plate from lorry drivers and the transport cabbies at one time, you know. So it's kind of a life learning experience which I've looked back on, and it's been good for me to really value every day that comes along as a result of that experience.
No, definitely, I can understand that, and we'll go back to that again soon. But just so listeners know sort of what you are and what you're doing now, what sort of property do you deal in at the moment?
We're largely into residential lettings. We rent out quite a few properties, mostly in UK. We're also into commercial. We've got a lot of commercial retail. And we do a fair bit of land development as well, but we don't build out on that land anymore. We acquire the land, get planning permissions, and sell it on to the house builders or self-build individuals.
Okay, so you do a bit of trading amongst what you do right now?
Yeah, I mean, the trading element's important to us because the profits we make on the trade, we use to clear the mortgages on the investment side, the rental side of the portfolio. So it actually is good using those two asset classes together, trade and investment.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'll touch on that soon. But one of the things I heard you say in the conference in Christchurch when I heard you, so we'll come back to that. Yeah, from your homeless days, dairy farmer to multi-millionaire property entrepreneur, and we don't have 30 years or a few days to go through 30 years of your time, but just tell the listeners how you got going in the early years.
Well, the early years, it took me a good long time. Like a lot of people, I always wanted to be a millionaire, but didn't know really how to do it. And it wasn't until I won a Nuffield Farming Scholarship in 1999 that things changed. The scholarship allowed me to travel the world and look at different ways of business. I wasn't just looking at farming, I was looking into the corporate world. And really, for two reasons. One was to help the farming industry in UK, which is Nuffield's remit. And secondly, to help myself on the decision of what I was going to do going forward. And what I found on that tour, which included New Zealand, it was my first trip to New Zealand back in 1999, I found that property was a solid business. And people were either investing directly in property and making money out of it, or they were putting their other profits into property because it was safe. So I like the feeling of that.
Okay, yeah, and interesting you say there of putting other assets or other income into property, and you see a lot of well-to-do people around the world, and that's what they do. They get their income from other assets or other means, and put it into property, which helps expand and accelerate that, I guess.
Yes, it does. I mean, property, when you buy it right, is a brilliant investment, and that's why the big pension funds and fund managers look at property as a number one asset, where they invest other people's money into it as well and take a margin themselves and still manage to return a margin to the customers in most cases. So I'm very pleased to be in the business.
Yeah, absolutely, as I am too. No, that's good. So how did what was your sort of strategy when you started off? We've got people listening here from haven't got their first property and like yourself, had a vision or a dream, they want to be a millionaire and perhaps weren't sure how to do it. To other people who have got 20 properties, 50 properties. So just what was your strategy when you first started of actually building up your own portfolio?
Well, I started with no knowledge whatsoever. I knew how to milk cows and get milk from grass, but I didn't really know what to do with property, either on refurb side or the rentals. So the first thing I did was went on a training, which was with Robert T. Kiyosaki of Rich Dad Poor Dad brand,
Yep.
And I learnt the theory of how to do it. After that, then I used creative finance techniques to buy my first house because I had no money. So I started with no knowledge and no money, so
Excellent.
Which was a pretty good place to start because I had nothing to lose, Mark. So my first house was bought using a buy-to-let mortgage. At that time, I managed to raise a mortgage in the end. It was difficult, but I got one on this first house at 85% loan-to-value. And the difference, which was the deposit and the refurb costs and the legals, I made up using one of two ways. A bit of money off credit cards, which I managed to get a couple of credit cards to raise some credit, and a loan from my auntie, who lent me £10,000. So together with the loan, the credit cards and the buy-to-let mortgage, I could fully fund the purchase and fix-up of the first one, which I sold, and I sold it for £8,100 profit. So if we kind of sort of double that, that's near the dollars figure for New Zealand. So I was quite happy with that. And I did another one, and the second one, I used the profits from the first to bridge the deposit. So I didn't need the credit cards this time. I still used my auntie's money because I paid her back and she wanted to invest again because she got her money back with a bit more.
Yep.
And on the second one, I made 11,200 profit. So they were both trades, both flips.
Yep.
And my strategy was to flip in the beginning, to trade, so that I could get a pot of residual funds then to bridge the properties that I would subsequently be holding. A couple of mistakes I did. The first two, I worked on them myself. Massive mistake looking back. They took too long to get to market, and it was really slow. The upside of it was I learned a little bit about refurbs, but I couldn't do it as well as the experts,
Hmm.
So the third one, I got the experts in, and that was done in a quarter of the time, and I turned the money around quickly on that one. So the strategy from then on has been, for every 3 properties that I buy, I hold on to 2 and I rent them out, and the third one I trade, and then use the profits from the trade, again, to pay down the debt. I don't like debt long term, so my objective is always to clear the debt as quickly as possible on the properties that I hold for investment.
Yeah, I really like that strategy. When you mentioned that at the conference, I mean, go back in the downturn of 2007 to 9, many Kiwi investors who went under was the reason they didn't have debt paid off, and when the banks called on money or they owed 100% on what they owed, on what they owned, I mean, they were the ones that unfortunately had their homes taken from them. So I'm big now for pay debt down, and it was a great way. But you said buy 3 and keep 2 and pay the debt down on the others. Yeah,
I mean it's been vital for us. That's the biggest single strategy factor that's made us safe. And when the downturn came into UK, which is where I hold most of my stock, my housing stock, we were in a very strong position. And we were one of the landlords that bought more during the recession than anybody else on a percentage basis of our portfolio. We've grown the portfolio the last 3 years to a massive number. So we take benefit of the recession because we're in a strong position on equity to ownership values, using the clearance of debt as a priority.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what the educated or investors have been around for a while and have their finances sorted. They go against the tide. They buy when people are selling. Obviously, there's a good time to be doing that, but you have to be set up, to do that from the previous cycle, I guess, and moving forward.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you can take full advantage when you've got low gearing, and you can't blame the banks for clawing back some of those loans when their security is at risk, So I think we have to play a safer game than what's been done in the past by some people.
Yeah, definitely. Just going back to when you started, it's a real fine line of when you start investing, and you said you obviously did a lot of training and learning first, which is obviously very important.
Yes.
And then some people don't take that next step of actually taking action and doing something. And I guess when you start off like yourself, you had no money yourself. You had to borrow from your auntie in your case, or what have you. You want to get that first one right, don't you? Because you want to keep borrowing from that same source for a little while, I guess.
Yeah, it's vital. I mean, the business strategy is easy. It's people that complicate it. And I think the biggest negative barrier to starting is the person. I've seen many a person come on to training, learn how to do it, get the finance availability in place, and then not press the start button, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen unless you bloody get off your backside and put some effort into it. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, I found. You really have to work hard, especially in the beginning. And I suppose my pain to start comes from the fact I didn't want to go back to the dairy farming. There's nothing wrong with dairy farming, but it certainly wasn't for me in the long term. And I remember being in the milking shed, putting the milking units on a cow, and the one behind me lifted her tail and puffed and coughed at the same time, and the steamy dung went all over my head, in my eye, down my neck, And then, looking back, that was definitely the moment when I said to myself, I do not want to be doing this in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
And I oftentimes say to people, if the pain of where you are is not great enough, you won't change. You've got to be prepared not to go back to the old way of what you're doing if you're going to be fully committed to something new. And that's the approach I gave it, and it's certainly, borne the fruit as a result of that.
Yeah, I was going to ask what one of your main drivers was, or what keeps you going, and that's most people who, I think the bigger reason they have to go ahead and do something different, or whatever that drive is, that the bigger that is, the bigger the bigger success they have down the track, and they've got that the more need or more want to keep going. And
I believe that totally. I mean, most entrepreneurs I've spoke to, and including myself, have been through massive pain in their earlier years at some stage as well. And in my case, I lost my sister. She died when she was 20 and I was 22. And I was always mindful of the fact that she didn't have any choices in life, whereas I have, and a lot of the listeners will have. And basically, our destiny is in our hands. We have got the ability to choose. And I chose to take happiness, if you like. If I was ever unhappy in life, I was going to change, and that philosophy has followed through even today. With my team now, I'm not the chief exec of the companies or the businesses. I'm the head of happiness.
Yes.
What I found is, as long as I'm happy and everybody else is happy, the businesses flourish. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. I chose property, but happiness is the number one.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, yeah, that's totally how I like living life now. And I mean, you never know when the next day is going to be your last. So you work hard, have fun, and try to inspire people around you, and it makes your life a whole lot happier and others. So that's great.
Sure, thanks, man.
Yeah, and I was just going to, one of the questions I was going to ask was about mindset, which you've sort of touched on already, and it's obviously a big thing through your process. I suppose your mindset has obviously grown as the 20 or 30 years in property has changed.
Yeah, I've realised that perhaps mindset isn't the most important element. I think energy, guts, determination is, which comes from inside you rather than from your head. And I've always been of the philosophy that you listen to your heart before your head. Because if you just go with mindset, you think you can do well. It's like a sticking plaster. That drive doesn't seem to last too long, you know? And what I found is if you know in your guts and soul that you can achieve something, and you totally believe that within you, that's a stronger drive than just mindset. You need both, but I tend to come from the gut feel first.
Yep, can relate to that. It's that knowing factor, and it's no different than a successful sportsman or businessman, whoever it is. It's the it's knowing, having the inner knowing what you're about to achieve or do, and that's when you achieve it.
Gotcha. Yeah, totally agree.
Great stuff. In your seminar, you talked about the 4 C's of success: the control, calculate, connect, and what's the last one? Complete, I think. Well, yeah, complete.
Yeah.
Most important. I'm lucky I remember that one. You want to expand on that for the listeners and how, tell them how important that is in your business?
Yeah, I mean, the most important of the 4 is actual control. And if I can focus on that one, the others fall underneath it. If you can't control your own direction, first of all, your own energy and direction, nothing's going to happen, because to be in a position like I'm in, you have to be a leader. And sometimes that can be a lonely place. You know, not all people have got the DNA or the energy or the drive to want to do that, which is fine. Secondly, though, I think you must control as well what goes on around you, because plenty of things can knock you off your track. And if you let that upset you or get to you in any way, it could be something that people do, which is not deliver on time. It could be something people say, which upsets you. I think you've got to learn to brush by that and focus on controlling exactly what your outcome is going to be. And with business, control is vitally important. I never lose control. And I do that in 2 ways as far as monitoring. Number one, every Friday, I get my finance manager to send through the money at bank in all of the bank accounts together with the profit and loss account related to that business. I look at the trends on that as far as whether the profit's gone up or down, and then I relate from that information back into the P&L and see where it's improved or why it's not been so good this week. And I make management decisions from the figures, first of all. Secondly, on the people side of things, which is vitally important, on the HR, we have performance review meetings on a monthly basis, and I control that as well, obviously. I'm delivering then to my team of 69 what we want to achieve for the coming months. So we do a process of minutes, review, and action plans. Nice. Also, it gives the team a chance to input into improving our outputs, our productivity, and obviously our happiness. So the control element is massive when you look at the back office to all that, as far as myself. And I remember about 7 years ago where I actually took my eye off the ball a little bit too much. I was speaking for some international companies, and I was away from the business a lot, away from home a lot. And as a result of that, the profitability suffered in the businesses. So I learned from that to delegate but not abdicate control. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's in fact the one thing I really liked. Well, a couple of things. Obviously, the profit and loss every Friday is immense, and you keep your hand on the business all the time. So there's if things start to waver or go wrong, it doesn't have time to, I guess, which is great.
Yeah, I'm on it early, because it's vital that you see the signs early. It's no good looking on a monthly basis at your bottom line figures. The actual process of that is easy as well, because I do travel a lot, go on a lot of business trips. And by the way, business trips are tax deductible, holidays aren't. So, when on these business trips, I can pick up the emails wherever I am in the world and quickly look at that information, and it's something I do without fail every Friday.
Great work. And just one other thing I picked up in there I like is which is so important, is you control yourself. And I mean the don't panic situation. Things do happen, do go wrong, and not like how you like it. I remember I interviewed someone several months ago on one of the podcasts, and they had something like $20 million of debt got called upon them with a project down south. And he's always different ways of doing things. He's not just keep an open mind and don't panic. And then he turned it right around, and he pulled out another strategy to help the people out that sort of owed him money to make the whole thing work, and he ended out a bit of a success. So control your own, know what you can do. And I suppose a part of that is controlling or using your team of experts around you to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a difference between controlling and interfering at the front line as to controlling from the back office, if you like.
Yeah.
And I've always learned in the recent years that the best positioning for myself is to become the observer to what's going on rather than the interactor.
Yeah.
So I take a stance of looking at the business from a distance, as if I was up in a helicopter looking down on everything, and judging from there as to what the next strategy move is going to be. And the best way that I do that is half an hour every day. I have me time, what I call me time, where the phone goes off. I'm usually parked on the top of a mountain, or I'm at home laying in my hammock overlooking the sea, and I'm just chilling out and reflecting really as to what we've done been right, first of all for my children and for the family matters, and then I start reflecting on the business, and after reflecting and then planning forward to the next day even. So all the time really I'm observing everything, but I'm not fussing at the front line and annoying people. I tend to make few decisions as a result of that, but I'm always monitoring and observing.
Yeah, that's great, and that's something it's so hard everyone seems so busy these days, including myself, and I like the fact when I do, and I don't do it half as much as I need to, but when you do that half hour a day or whatever it might be, you can actually have, as I said, look at the whole business you are doing with the overview of looking down on it, and that's when you make the good decisions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the best business decisions I've ever made is when I'm not actually seem to be working, is when I'm going on holiday. And I know it's a bit of a strange one, but the more you relax and enjoy and chill out, the more you obviously, because your business excites you, you think about it and you feel really what's coming next. And on holiday, you tend to have time to do that, to reflect. And my team say, oh, my life is on holiday again. We're going to get a lot of emails in a couple of days on actions to do. So they prefer me to be around than to be on holiday. Let's do it for them.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. Okay, well, control obviously very, very big. Do you want to talk about any more of the other three C's?
Yeah, I mean, connection, calculation, and complete are the other three. And if I deal with them in order, then it's not just what you know, it's who you know as far as connection. And I'm very fortunate to be a pretty good networker, and that's certainly helped myself in business. It opens doors, so much so that I'm now the personal advisor to the business minister, advising on entrepreneurship and engagement from primary into professional. So I'm proud of that position, and my mum's proud of me now, but that's come through largely networking. And if I go back to another one of my mistakes as far as that side of things with connecting with people, I used to be very insular. I wouldn't do any PR. I wouldn't do any media article. If anybody asked me from the press, I'd say no. And that carried on up until 2008, even when Channel 4 came along and said, would you appear on a program called The Secret Millionaire? I said, definitely not. That was way out of my comfort zone.
Yep.
by 2009, my thoughts had been changed really by people around me who said, you can help other people by focusing a little bit more and sharing your message. So it led to me saying yes to Secret Millionaire, which I went really in at the deep end, I suppose, with PR and connection, and did that program, and that kick-started then a massive rolling ball of PR. And through that, I connected with some very high-level people. So I'd encourage anybody who's getting into business to take the opportunities of PR. I had a bit of a lead and mentor, Sir Richard Branson, who advised me of the same, but I didn't take any notice. I didn't want to do it because my granddad always said, keep your head down and don't tell anybody what you're doing when you're successful, A bit of a Kiwi thing as well, I know. Certainly a Welsh philosophy. So, but if you look at Sir Richard and look at the Virgin brand and the crazy things that he does to promote that, that's all a PR base to get bums on seats, to get customers, really, and to share the message of what Virgin does. And I applaud that, and I would encourage people to embrace it and connect wherever they can, because you can ask anybody for advice. The worst they can tell you is go away or no. But at the end of the day, a lot of people will help you as well on your journey. So that really deals in a nutshell with connection. Calculation is the most straightforward one. And, learn to calculate your numbers properly. And it never stops. You think you've got the winning formula, but there's always some new trick there. I think outside of the obvious calculations of yield, return on investment, and profits, which is what matters, profits before tax,
yep.
you look then at the true rate of return for your time. And that's something I've focused more and more on as I've got bigger in business. My return on my time invested, exactly what is that? And it's a measurement I call ROTI, R-O-T-I, return on time invested. And I don't really mind putting huge time into setting up a business, but thereafter it must be fairly passive, because for me, true wealth is as passive as possible, in that you set up structures which can feed you money without you having to work too hard in them long term. So that really covers then the calculation bit of the C. The last one, which is complete, which is a pretty obvious one, I suppose. Many people start something, they don't follow it through. And what I found is there's a gender difference here. Women tend to start things and finish things. Men don't. So if there's any men listening, we need to up our game a little bit. The women are better than us, And I've had to apply myself, whereby I get very excited about something and I want to start it. And as a typical entrepreneur, we tend not to follow through unless we control that to ourselves. Again, it links in with that other C, if you like, in that we must control our direction and complete what we've started. So I've had to learn that, Mark, to complete things, no matter what it takes. And because I've done that, I've got very successful.
Yeah, but that's definitely, we've all got those strengths and weaknesses, and that's why it's good to have more than just yourself on your team that you can bang ideas around with all the time. So you need, as I said, the people who have the ideas. You need the people who are actually going to continue to complete it. And that the strength of your team, and even if you're an investor there by yourself, you have more than just you and your team. And it's having good people you can and on your team realise you don't know everything, and hopefully you can, between all those 4 C's there, and especially the complete one, you'll achieve that. Yeah,
definitely. I really reflect on what Bill Gates told me when I interviewed him for my Nuffield Scholarship. He said any person's only as good as the people he or she surrounds themselves with. So what you're saying about team there, Mark, is spot on. We can be brilliant, but if we surround ourselves with the wrong team, it doesn't work. The other thing, perhaps on the bigger picture as well, is we are customer-led. We do a lot of surveys and feedback from our tenants and other service and product receivers, so that we find out what the customer wants. And I think that's very important in business, and especially in the changing market that we're in.
Definitely. And, geez, I love the thing you said about the connections there before. If I found myself, I mean, the more I was pretty kept to myself reasonably, I suppose, 15, 20 years ago. And I've been creating this business which we've been creating. And if you get yourself out there and you do things right and get trusted with what you're doing, things really do open up, and I'm blown away with the opportunities that I'm getting sort of presented each day, and by you doing the same thing on telly and in the public and the press, obviously as you'll be very aware of, it gets different opportunities at a different scale again.
Yeah, I mean, you have to come to a point as well where you can say no. If somebody's asking you to do something and it doesn't fit with your objectives or goals, you have to control the answer to that. I've been at fault as well in the past of saying yes to everything because I get so excited about spreading the message. But time is valuable. We have to not spread ourselves too thin and look at how we can most effectively spread that message. So I think as you grow with PR and media in particular, you need to be a little bit selective as to what you do. But certainly engaging with it and getting the message out there is absolutely priceless. It's beautiful. I mean, with that, you might get some negativity coming back. I've certainly had it. I remember Duncan Bannatyne, who's one of the Dragons, who's a great friend. He said to me, "PR is great," he said. "You'll know when you've made it when you get negative press." So for a long time, I had nothing negative at all. And I thought, well, I'm not doing very good here. Then on the back of Duncan's comment, and then a negative bit came in from an article in The Guardian, and something had been misinterpreted. And I thought, oh, brilliant, at last I've made it.
You've made it, yep.
So, you have to put up with some myths as well as some good stuff if you're going to engage with it. But the bigger picture is it's a wonderful journey if you can actually spread that message out there and influence other people for the better.
I hate to say, but we're going to stop it right there for this week, but tune in next week where Kevin goes on to talk about some of his strategies he uses now and also when he started investing all those years ago. So enjoy the week, and we'll be back in touch, and I'm sure next week.